So how was your weekend? Where were you when you heard this happened?
I was at a family birthday gathering.
Tonight, a special edition of World News Tonight.
Just like mind spiraling.
I was also at a birthday party. She was like, did you hear what just happened? And I was like, no, what just happened?
What we're calling an assassination attempt against our former president, Donald Trump.
I spent maybe half the party on Twitter.
You know, within seconds of that horrible incident on Saturday, there were already the conspiracy theories.
The FBI is still investigating this attack, but I spoke
So, what do you think?
What do we have to do with any of this?
Well, yeah, what do we have to do with any of this? What can we offer in this time?
I think for me, at least, a big impetus for this channel was this feeling like people can't figure out what's true. We think of that a lot in terms of scientific facts, but in many cases, it has to do with journalism.
And so there's a lot of details still to work out. We know from all our
When there's breaking news, how do we figure out what happened? That's what this video is about. And right after we had that conversation, Elon Musk tweeted that the legacy media was so far behind and wrong on this story that it was pointless. Is it better to just get your information directly from random people on X? Well, I spent the week after the shooting on X, and I'm going to show you some of the most popular posts, so ones that have at least 1 million views according to X.
And I'm going to show you what so-called legacy media was up to during the same time period. How are they trying to figure out what happened, who did it, and what went wrong? So when Trump takes the stage in Butler, Pennsylvania, a handful of outlets are carrying it live.
Take a look at what happened.
Just after a breaking news event, you have about 45 minutes before you really have any information whatsoever. And that's exactly when people want information. We can't change the human desire, this hunger for rapid information when we have absence of information.
And pretty much immediately, Twitter accounts are rushing in to fill the void of information. Of the initial tweets, the ones that got the biggest audience, I mean tens of millions of views, are ones that had a pretty alarming version of this headline. And as the takes came in, the most extreme ones did big numbers. Claims that Trump had staged the whole thing, or that it was Joe Biden's fault.
I think we should probably at some point explain the deal with the blue check marks that are on a lot of these popular posts.
Yeah, the blue checks used to mean that the identity of the account had been verified by Twitter because it was a notable person. And most journalists would do that through the news organizations that they worked for. But when Elon Musk took over last spring, he put an end to that.
He decided that anybody could essentially buy that blue tick, that the Twitter wasn't going to be doing that verification. So that journalist with 2,000 followers at the local newsroom is like, I'm not going to pay $9 a month to Elon Musk. Then when the local journalist who lives in Butler, Pennsylvania starts tweeting because they're actually there, you're like, are you actually a local journalist from Butler, Pennsylvania, or are you, pretending to be?
Okay, so we've got all these blue check posts flying around, and at the same time, news organizations, they feel like they have to get the news out there as quickly as they can, but a lot of their headlines were pretty vague.
You described it before as like a beat poem.
Right, it's sort of this impressionistic haiku.
Loud noises ring out. Trump is escorted off stage with blood on his face.
It was quite clear from Twitter that it was 90% certain an assassination attempt, but it was 10% maybe not. And in the news business, you can't go with 90%.
We do not publish when we are not 150% sure. If we give you something that turns out to be wrong, why would you trust us the next time?
Journalists really try to wait in these situations until there's been word from some sort of official source.
The district attorney of Butler County telling ABC News the shooter is dead.
Not long after that, Trump posts on Truth Social, and then a few minutes later, the Secret Service chimes in with an official statement.
It was enough for us to go on, enough for us to change that headline.
What is the next thing that journalists can do to find out more?
Well, the ideal situation is that you have someone on the ground. You have a reporter that can start to ask questions and verify information. And because this is the Trump campaign, they had sent a lot of people. They'd sent reporters and photographers. And it's actually been kind of a shtick at all these rallies that Trump says, oh, look, there's the fake news media, and everyone gets to boo. And that's what happened on Saturday.
This is a big crowd. I wish the fake news back there would show it.
And after the shooting, you can sort of feel this animosity bubbling over.
This is your fault! This is your fault! Hey, easy. This is your fault!
But this whole time, and I think this is pretty impressive, you can see these reporters and photographers just doing their job. There's this incredible video. The Washington Post photographer was wearing glasses with video capability, and you can see him standing and angling to get the shot as like the rest of the crowd is just cowering in place. In this incredibly scary moment, the photographers captured some really iconic shots that I think came to define this event.
And these images obviously make their way to Twitter immediately. They're sort of diffusing through the platform. And they start to go through a kind of, it's like a funhouse mirror process. So you have people saying Trump took a shot to the chest using this weirdly cropped image. He didn't. Was Trump actually smiling? No. There were viral tweets saying that blood does not coagulate that fast, that he had faked it with a blood pill. And then later on, this low-res portion of a photo was used to bolster the claim that it was actually glass from a damaged teleprompter that hit Trump, not a bullet. If you look at other images, it's pretty easy to verify that the teleprompters were intact.
So was there anything useful? I mean, this is all kind of like this wild speculation. Was there anything accurate or useful that came out of X in these first moments?
One of the things that is useful is eyewitness footage. It does tend to show up first on social media. So there's a news aggregation account called Photojournalists, and they posted a video of the shooter lying dead on the roof. And so it's that kind of footage that really helps to quickly establish the lay of the land.
So the first thing you do is just kind of get a sense for the geography of the event. And then from there, you can work with the user-generated videos you see.
They're also using media reports, like this slew of eyewitness interviews from the BBC's Gary Donahue.
One of our eyewitnesses, Tim, who we spoke to, said he saw a man crawl up onto that roof.
I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this, and next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
And where he was pointing was exactly correct where the shooter was.
So the New York Times and other outlets too are trying to pull together all of these different images and videos to make accurate maps of the scene. They're analyzing the audio with the help of experts to count the shots and confirm the location of the shooter. They've got this incredible photo from New York Times photographer Doug Mills that actually captured the passage of one of the bullets. But through all of this analysis, the identity of the shooter is still a complete mystery.
Trying to verify the suspect's identity.
They have not released an identity.
What was the shooter's motive?
Why he did this.
Who did this, and any motives behind why this was done.
The first place to report the identity of the shooter initially gets it wrong. The night of the shooting, the New York Post announces that the gunman was a Chinese man, which they correct to a white male about 20 minutes later. And then just before midnight, they're the first to publish his name.
I just remember looking at that and going like, oh, there's a really good chance that they're wrong because this outlet has been wrong before.
But what they are able to do is take this name, put it into public databases, and start to get the public information about it.
Where they've lived, every single address that they've lived at. Phone numbers where we can reach them at, next of kin, party affiliation.
And political donations. Once the FBI officially confirms this name, pretty much everybody publishes the same information. The shooter was a registered Republican who had once donated to a liberal PAC.
You have this guy with an ambiguous political profile, and then at the same time you have this platform where partisans are actively crafting their narratives of this event.
If you saw Trump getting shot at and you immediately thought, well, that's definitely Antifa, then you're looking for any details that can link this person to Antifa or things like that.
Or if you really want him to be, a right-wing nut job, then if this donation comes across, it's something that you're very motivated to explain away in some way. And this rumor spreads that $15 donation was made by a 69-year-old with the same name. That was just not true. I counted at least 5 different people being falsely accused of being the shooter. So first, it was a, quote, Antifa extremist named Mark Violets, but this image was actually an Italian soccer commentator that someone seemed to have been playing a joke on. They said it was a guy who had shouted /Republican throats in a video, but it turned out that video was taken 4 years ago. It was an Arizona State University student, not the shooter. This photo and video circulated of a person who said he, quote, hates Republicans. They claimed it was the shooter, but it was just a troll who had posted these videos and photos as a joke. Roger Stone claimed that the shooter was actually someone named Matthew Yurick because that person had been affiliated with Antifa in Pittsburgh. And even 5 days after the shooting, these two blue check accounts named Paul Hookham and Matt Wallace posted a picture of an unrelated transgender person that they said was the shooter. And that picture had been posted on 4chan by someone who said, quote, spreading rumors is fun.
One of the things that Elon Musk mentions in that post that we shared is that when things are wrong on X, they get corrected. And when I came across some of these tweets that you just mentioned, I did see that below there's a little bar with a correction in it.
Yeah, this would have been much worse without this community notes team. These are volunteers who fact check posts, and they were really playing whack-a-mole, doing their best to catch these. But, you know, like any fact-checking effort, they usually only get to them once they've already gone viral.
So while all this is happening on X, reporters are digging into his online footprint to try and figure out anything about him.
He had an account on like a 3D printing, something for 3D printing software, and he had a bunch of accounts on different like gaming things, World of Warcraft, Diablo, Call of Duty. But I mean, that doesn't really tell you much about why he tried to kill Trump. You know,
right.
It's more of just kind of color of like, oh, this is who the guy was.
And they're also trying to find people who knew the shooter.
They started to look at where he went to high school, numbers of neighbors that they could start calling, anyone who may possibly know this guy.
Within a day, the Inquirer sends this reporter Ellie rushing to the shooter's hometown to try knocking on doors.
Sometimes when people are not super willing to talk, they're a little more willing to talk if they know that you're a human being and not just some disembodied voice at the end of the phone. We had a lot of luck with classmates.
He was a nice kid.
He would sit alone at lunch.
He did have a few friends.
Wanted to be by himself.
Journalists were piecing together a picture, just not one that fit neatly into anyone's political narrative.
The 20-year-old worked at a local nursing home.
Won a prize for math and science.
Interested in government and history.
Never said anything partially political.
Member of a gun club. His father purchased the assault rifle legally.
Thomas Crooks.
He was just a normal kid to me.
So the other big question in everybody's minds during all of this was, how could the Secret Service let this happen?
Once we're a few days in, it's clear that someone has been killed. The conspiracy theories from the left-leaning folks kind of quiet down. And what's left is folks who are claiming that this was a plot from inside the government. People circulated this post from 4chan. It was someone calling themselves Jonathan Willis saying that they were one of the snipers and that the head of the Secret Service, quote, refused to give the order to take out the perpetrator before the shooting.
The AP asked the Secret Service and the Butler Police Department, and they said, no, we don't have anyone with that name.
Yeah, so rumors pop up on X. Reporters have to chase it down. Others zero in on a woman in the crowd who they think acted suspiciously, and they decided that she was an FBI employee named Janine DiGiuseppe.
And again, the reporters asked the FBI about this. They say, yeah, that's not her.
But by then, these posts had just huge numbers of views and shares. But of all the tweets I viewed over the week, and I did nothing but look at tweets for days, the most popular one by far was this one. Elon Musk entertaining the idea that the Secret Service deliberately allowed someone to shoot Donald Trump.
On X, there's a lot of jumping to conclusions that are very exciting and sensational. And meanwhile, the news media is slowly moving to try and figure out what happened. They're pressing the Secret Service and other law enforcement to try and understand what went wrong. A week before the head of the Secret Service faced questions from Congress, she actually faced questions from an ABC reporter.
Who is most responsible for this happening?
What I would say is that the Secret Service is responsible for the protection of the former president. There was local police in the area that were responsible for the outer perimeter of the building.
And at a more local level, these reporters have been developing relationships with the local police for years, and they use that connection, those face-to-face relationships, to get more details about what happened. There's the Beaver Countian, which is this tiny newsroom, and they learn that there were local cops stationed inside the building complex, and they had reported the gunman to their commanders. A Pittsburgh TV station reports that they had actually flagged the shooter as suspicious about a half hour before the shooting.
A key question we're trying to answer is, how did this
this guy get so far as to fire off several shots before he was neutralized by one of the snipers. And I think there was a lot of speculation online that were saying, oh, look, there's a tree in the way of this sniper. Sometimes people can actually be quite good at that kind of thing. And then other times it's just veers into speculation. And so the question for me is, can we really put some rigor to this claim?
The team at the Post combines a bunch of satellite images, LiDAR data, photos and videos from the scene to create this accurate, or as accurate as possible, picture of the exact size and position of the buildings. Using this 3D model, you can actually put a virtual camera at the eye line of the snipers, and you can see that really it was the pitched roof that blocked their view of the shooter crawling up on the roof more than the trees. And remember, this whole analysis was made possible in part by these videos that people took on the ground.
Job is to really verify it and contextualize it so that readers can have the full picture instead of just bits and pieces.
What I saw on Twitter was not that there wasn't any good information or that there was nobody operating in good faith there, but that it's like looking for groceries in a landfill. Yeah, maybe you'll find a good apple there, but in the meantime, you're covered in garbage going through it. Mm-hmm. And so almost all of the good information that you did see on X was copied over from the work of reporters in the news media.
And I also feel like some of the pressure for these news organizations to get stuff out so quickly is because there is an alternative platform that they're competing with, where this is just adding one more level of pressure to put out something, anything, as soon as they possibly can.
And that's where we see them making mistakes.
Right. To me, journalism shines over the long haul. It's the slow accumulation of information and analysis that is a collaboration between not just multiple reporters in a newsroom, but newsrooms across the nation at every level. It seems like an obvious solution is for people to just be more patient. When something like this happens, go for a walk with your dog.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that, Adam. I'm sorry. Right. I can't. And one of the things that Claire said was, we've been doing this for 15 years.
It's so hard because all of this is psychology. The sensible part of me should not have gone onto Twitter on Saturday, and I am the first to admit that. And so I wish I could say to everybody, it's best that we sit and wait. But now we assume that we can get accurate information in milliseconds.
She said that there are conversations happening about what the news media can offer in the first, minutes and hours after a breaking news event. And what she suggested, which I love because it's right in line with the HOWTOWN mission, is to tell people more about how you're trying to track down these questions. You want to know what his motive was? We also want to know what his motive was. Here's the 4 different avenues we're pursuing to try to figure that out.
We can't tell you the answers to the questions you have right now, but let's talk through the process of how we get to those answers. We're going to work with you and tell you as soon as we've got the answers, and here's how we're working it out.
There's likely more information to come on the shooting, so check local and national news outlets to learn more. And if you want to watch us process the news last Monday and brainstorm how we would make this video, you can find that on our Patreon page.
Wow, this is so funny because I was sort of going into this week being like, I'm not going to engage with the news this week.